could have made a commercial and made pretty good money out of it. But like I say, nowadays there's just not enough. There's just not enough people in the industry to manufacture stuff like this. And corn grinder, what?
I think it's like sand.
Well, this is actually ballast from the woodland scenes, plus a few other chunks that just roll down there. It's always interesting when a spider web comes out.
And I gather you get some sort of auger in there or something?
Exactly. Yep. Well, it's more of a paddle wheel.
Paddle wheel,
The
okay.
auger would have same idea, thing rotating that
Just to
keeps
push it.
pushing
Yeah,
something
yeah.
out.
And then you got your levers in there.
The what? What?
Howdy, everybody. Thanks for coming in and taking part in this weathering show. And for those that were in early, you may have noticed we were online for a few seconds earlier. This was just to do some checking of audio and video and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully everything goes well tonight, and we'll continue. So I'll put the camera down. We went through last month, the St.L&H SD40-2. And I did some pre-shading with Tamiya white, thinned out so that it's 90% thinner. And it turned out okay. So I started doing a little bit of the weathering by adding, here. So I added some of the rust marks and the paint charring and so on underneath, and a little bit under here, just adding little dabs of brown to build it up. And then because this locomotive is designed the way it is, the dynamic brake blister comes off. And with my sponges, I was able to add some more watercolor gouache in this area to blend this chipping so that it's like it's coming through the paint. I added the dynamic fan, a new fan on the top. Come on, go in. And that was Canon Industries fan. And I may still put the second one in. That it looks lonely. So in the meantime, while we were off air since the last show, I took up some of the weathering products that I use, and I started to weather the other side just so that we'd be a little step ahead. So I'm using, that's upside down. Okay. So I'm using, this is a MIG ammo product. It's called a wash, and it's called Starship Wash, and it's number 1009, if anybody's interested. That's what I used to do this. I don't know whether you see the difference. It's quite grimy now. I don't want to overdo it on this one. This Starship Wash is a thinned out black, basically. If you take an oil paint and really wash it down, or you had some on your brush and you go in a vat of Varsol or thinner mineral spirits and you clean your brush off, that's what you end up with. That liquid is what this wash is like. So it finds its way into the crevices, the cracks, and when I'm done, I'll put a little bit more in the louvers and the vents to enhance them. So what I've done, I did the top as well. And there's the top of the cab. In the cab, I did the same way. I did little chip marks first, and then came back with the liquid, put it on, and then after that, I put some of the gouache on top again, right on the edges of the corners, just to give it a little bit more of a rusty bleed through. I also went ahead and weathered the frame and trucks. Now I've taken the motor out of here. So because this is the Athearn Blue Box, this whole thing is like solid metal basically. The trucks are back in place, but I've weathered them using Rust-Oleum Camo Brown, the dark brown, chocolate brown, and then come back with gouaches. And there's two different colors of gouaches on here. One is the burnt umber, and the other one is raw umber. So the lighter color that you see is the raw umber. The burnt umber is the background color. And then I came back with a special glossy sort of paint. This one here I have is from Wilder Industries, and it's called Diesel Exhaust Effects. You don't have to use this. You can use black paint again, but you want it glossy so it gives a little bit of a sheen on the axle bearings. And what I'm going to do with that as well is the streaks down from the oil tank, from the fill cap, and from the sight glass. Now, on these models, on some of them, they don't have a fill stub or the sight glass on them. This one does. It's molded in. So I can bring it down from there. On one that doesn't have it, you can actually go to, I think it's Canon Industries, and you can buy the filler cap and the sight glass and all of that and add it to it for detail, or not. It's up to you. I usually go with this. And I've made up some of my own too, so it's not out of the realm of impossibility. If you don't want to take these trucks apart, now this Athearn Blue Box are easy to take apart. It's just a matter of getting a screwdriver in there and popping the truck off, because there's two pins that are holding it on. On the newer Genesis, you can't do this. So there's the two pins, there and there. There's the two holes. So when I take this off, then I mount it on my paint stick. Where's my paint stick? There. And I use a piece of tape that I put on backwards and just hold it down in place, and that's how I paint it with the camo. I get it down on the stick with the tape on backwards, and I just another piece of tape to hold it in place. And then just continue on. If you don't want to take them off, let me get this back on again. Come on. There we go. I take a piece of 10 thou plastic. I take my single hole punch, right? And I'll punch holes that line up with the axle so that I can actually do this. Put it right underneath. Why doesn't it want to go under now? It did for me earlier. Anyway, it goes between the frame and the wheels, and it stops you from getting any paint on the wheels. When I take the frames off, I usually paint the wheel face, but in this case, I didn't do it. If you wanted to continue on and paint it up, once you take it off, you paint your wheel faces. Try not to get any paint on the tires. Otherwise, you may lose continuity or conductivity. Yeah, as you can see, I've got 2 or 3 different types. This one here fits under one as well. It goes on a slightly different way, depending on the manufacturer. And here's a Genesis one here. I can show you. This is a pain in the butt to get apart. This one here, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see it. Yeah, I guess you can. Right down in here, there and there, there's 2 little tabs that have to be released on either side. And once you've got them released, then it separates at this line. You take that bottom off, you can actually take the wheels out, you can take the side frames. So I take the wheels out and I put them in. I have a wheel masking tool. And I can't remember who makes this, but it comes apart. It just slides out. You put your wheels in, and then you slide it back together again. And it holds the wheels nice and snug, so that you paint the faces and not the tires. And it works. I mean, if you're really careful, you don't have to use a mask like that. I usually, if I have the truck off or I have the wheels free, I can actually turn the wheel and hold the brush still and get it to go around without going on the tire. But again, it's that little tab. And when you release the tab, right down in here is where these bars are that go into when you release it. This part here, there's fingers that go down into holes that are on the ends of these tabs, and that's what holds them in. If you break them, you're screwed. So it's up to you how you want to deal with it. In this case, I take it apart, but if I couldn't, I would make myself up something like this to put underneath the wheels so that I can paint the frames and not the wheels. And Bob's your uncle after that, as they say. Now, this was to a Genesis SD40-i. And it's funny because when I got that locomotive, I bought it brand new. I put it on my layout, and any deviation from straight, it would derail. And I found out that these trucks are warped. And they suggested for me to put it on a piece of glass and twist it until it's flat. Well, I did that, and it didn't last. So I went back I was working at a hobby shop at the time. I went back to my boss and I said, can you talk to your supplier and get me some new trucks? And they did. So these are the spare ones now. So we can move forward and show you how we do this. Okay. So is there any questions there, Andy? Anybody got anything? Any questions on this so far?
A bit so far, people chatting back and forth. You guys talking about an old taco locomotive and some such, but questions, anybody? We're paying attention to the chat, of course. Of course, what Ralph's doing is complex and specific, and I think we all love it. But if any of you guys have questions about it, please bring them up, and I'll bring it up to Ralph.
Okay. So I just slap it on. Now I've already done the top and the front and back, so I want to be careful where I put it now. Thing is, if you do this, you slap it on. The idea behind doing this is to let it dry for 20 minutes. I may have to do the takeoff routine before the 20 minutes. Otherwise, it won't be dry when I do it, but you'll still get the effect. Don't be afraid to get it on the walkways, even though the walkways are a different color. It doesn't matter. Grease and grime go everywhere. If you do this on a locomotive, only do one side at a time. Because if you get any overspill on the other side, that when you're taking it off and you forget about it, it may be hard to get it off. You have a longer working time with this product than you would with an acrylic, way longer. Acrylic is about 20 minutes to half an hour. This, I can come at it 2 hours later or the next day and play around and still manipulate it.
Learning about the oils and the solvent based is largely what has resolved most of my fear of weathering higher end equipment, because you're not so committed. You know, taking acrylics to it, you're committed immediately. So you get it right on first touch, or you're kind of stuck with it.
That's right.
Rob, do any of these same steps with a black loco using the same colors, or do I do any of the same steps with a black?
Black locos, first off, you're gonna fade it. So on a black loco, you don't have to use white like I do. You can use a light gray to fade it. The idea is to change the color because the sun will actually fade it down to a gray to begin with. The same with red; it changes it to almost to a pink. Every color sitting under the sun will fade to some degree, and black, it's probably best to use a gray because the white might be too stark for it. Other than that, it's just a matter of choice, basically. If you don't want to use the gray, you want to use white, it's all yours. It's your railroad.
Just get more of an extreme effect. I mean, that's a situation I have to deal with. I mean, being a Norfolk Western, Norfolk Southern modeler, everything's black. So.
Okay. Where's my pointed brush? Well, the other one's drying. If I can get this open. Oh, here we go. That's because my hand's not there. As soon as I put my hand in, it'll stop.
It's got a bit of a heart. That camera's got a bit of a heartbeat when you're not there. It misses you.
It misses me. That's right. Okay. So, you don't want to have a really full brush when you do this because you want to get it as. And if you're anything like me, I usually have to do it sideways because going down, my lines are not straight; they go crooked. So in and around, you're going to get spill. And you're just brushing it down a little bit. You can come back with thinners later. If you're not happy with the way it turned out, just use your thinner, pick up most of it, and start over again. So around the sight glass. And the way oil goes when it usually spreads out the further down it goes. If you want straight lines, you put straight lines. But if you look at a prototype that has the streak, it tends to get wider at the bottom. Now, I want to touch up the wheel bearings. because I did dull coat them, so I want to bring that back up to shine again. Some of the bearings on some of the trucks or some of the locomotives, you see sometime where there's, I've seen them so that they're blue. This little pad on the side, I don't know whether you can see that. It's actually the plate that holds the bearing in place on either side. And it rusts like everything else does, but when it's first put on, it's almost a blue like this paintbrush is, maybe a little bit lighter. And you don't have to put as much grease on it. So if you paint those things the blue, it'll simulate that that bearing has been recently changed. So you do the same on the other side, because usually when they take the wheel out to do the bearing, they do both sides. And you don't have to do them all, but one here and there, and you end up with an interesting sight, I guess you could call it.
And I'm not positive that I know I'd probably seen that, and I had not been drawn. It had not been drawn to my attention, and especially here lately, I've been looking and capturing a big repository of prototype photos in order to weather off from them. And I can't tell you how often, or at least I now notice that effect, those little blue caps. So I'm definitely going to recreate that in my case.
And depending on what angle your layout is at, you can do it so that it goes right underneath or just down enough. If you're looking down at your locomotives, you're not going to see the underside. If you're looking straight at them, like you're beside them, then by all means take it underneath, because that's where you're gonna see it. Like these guys, when they fill up the tanks, they're not really all that careful either. And once the spill goes down, even though diesel fuel is clear, it's a dust collector. So it picks up all the road grime as it goes along. Too much.
Is that like a fill and an overflow or something? Is that what those are?
That's the fill cap.
Yeah.
And that's the sight glass.
Sight glass. Okay, that's the ticket. I was trying to figure out what that would have been.
And usually on a brand new locomotive, you'll find the sight glass has red painted on it, on either side of it, so that it brings your eye to it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Now, back at those wheels.
I've seen the emergency cutoffs modeled on some of the more modern models that we've got, scout trains and stuff. I think have the the bright red emergency cutoff switches on them.
Yep. But those are usually on the running boards.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, right.
Or just under it.
Right.
So it's not actually part of the frame.
Yeah, it's like sitting immediately on top of the tank.
If you saw that movie Unstoppable, at one point during that whole fiasco, they were trying to hit that button by shooting at it, and nobody hit it. And I'm surprised they didn't put holes in the fuel tank because they
I,
were shooting at it with bullets.
I know. I remember seeing that in the movie and just being surprised that they would have thought that would have worked. I mean, I could see some thought in tearing a hole in the, not a bullet hole, but tearing a decent hole in the side of the tank by maybe running scratching it with a bulldozer as it went by or something to let the fuel run out of it or something. I could see that making a bit of sense, maybe, but.
So not everybody puts this stuff on. I do. It's just a little thing that I like to do. So that's the frame.
That's one of my favorite techniques you do is the fuel spillage.
Okay, let's see where this is at. Oh, that's not bad. Okay. Clean up the brush. Now, because this locomotive has the walkway built in, it makes it very difficult to do downward strokes. So you have to go up, if that makes any sense to you, because that's basically what happens. Where's my brush?
Otherwise, you're going to pull paint. All your paint's going to pull down into the walkboard, I assume.
Well, when I pull down, the brush hits the running board and I can't get the last quarter inch.
All right, there's that too. Yeah.
Right? So it's a matter of turning it around. And now you have to be really selective of where you take it off.
Yeah, you've got to outsmart it naturally starts strong and fades to weaker as you go down the way you'd want it if you're pulling down, but you've got to do that by pressure now.
So now I just go kind of quickly at first. And you can see where it's lifting up over these vents and so on. And it's leaving a line. So you come back. The camera's in the way. And take it down if you can. Work both ways. And when you're doing this, the longer you leave the brush on the surface or the slower you go, the more you take off. Now you've seen that was done fairly quickly. So there's still stuff on there. But if I go slowly, I can leave almost a white streak.
Wow.
It's dramatic, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you do that every once in a while and blend it in. And I keep going back and dipping into my mineral spirits. And then instead of having a brush full of mineral spirits, I blot it off on a paper towel, just below the table here. I don't know whether you can see it. No, you can't see it. Okay. Now the idea is not to go sideways, but on these locomotives, you don't have much choice. If you can keep your brush sort of 90 degrees to that corner, you'll be able to stop that from happening. And then when you get into here, it doesn't matter because you can pull it right up into the dynamic brake. Or you can take the dynamic brake right off. But now here's where all the dirt and grime comes in, because it's coming down from here and these things. So it's up to you how you want to do it. And always, as I said before, work from a prototype photograph. Don't try and do it from your head. I've done this long enough that I can sort of do that by working from my head, but I had a photograph to start with. And it doesn't have to be this particular road name. It can be any road name. If you like the dirt effect that you get on a particular locomotive and you want to replicate that on yours, by all means, blend it in. Take maybe 2 or 3 prototype photographs and add them to your locomotive and see where that goes.
They're all weather different anyway. I mean, if you have a picture of an SD40-2, boy, especially considering how popular those things were, you've got the full range from an absolute rust bucket to a showpiece in that class of locomotive. So,
Yeah.
Rarely do you find pictures. I mean, sometimes I've got some pictures of exact prototype, exact road number specific prototype pictures, but most of the time you're going to be working from some facsimile of a couple locomotives that are similar to what you wanted, not the locomotive. Nor do most people care to model the 2472 exactly to the 24.
Yeah, but ideally that's the way to go, is to have that exact number. And because what you're doing is you're trying to replicate the way the real thing is.
I'm trying. That locomotive that I'm going to send to you, I've got an exact, I've got an exact picture of that exact road number in roughly the era I'm modeling too. At times, another consideration too, you find a picture of the thing, it could have been 10 years after or 10 years before you would really want it to be, regardless of what you actually model.
Okay, I'm just going to turn this around so I can see it different.
Eric asked about time. He said, about how long does it take you to weather a locomotive? One locomotive start to finish?
Depends on the locomotive. This one here is probably one of the easier ones to do because I don't have a lot of detail that I have to work around. Andy, you've seen me work on stuff at night on our regular chat. I could probably over the course of a couple of nights, maybe 2-3 nights, starting at about 8 o'clock in the evening and going till about let's say 11, maybe 2 or 3 nights, and it's done.
Well, you couldn't just sit down and do it in one setting anyway. You've got time.
No, you gotta let it dry out. I mean, these paints that I'm using, they do gas off, and you got to make sure you're aware of that.
You can improve that speed a bit if you're really in a rush with a hairdryer or something, but with oil paints, you're not going to get that far. That's not going to help you that much.
Here's what I do when I'm working on my own. I have this. I got this at the dollar store. It's got plastic blades, so if it knocks something, it's not gonna break it. And it's just a fan. And when I run it over top of the locomotive, the mineral spirits dries off fairly quickly, which is nice because that's what you want to do. You want to get rid of the mineral spirits so you can see what it looks like, because paint always looks different when it's dry.
Yeah. That'll buy you a little bit of time, but when you put the oil paints on, you're still going to have to let what that base of that stuff is. But you're still going to have to let that set a couple days before you can clear coat or dual coat in order to do powders or whatever the next step's going to be. You're still going to take it down.
This here now. Once I've finished, I let it dry for about an hour or maybe a half an hour, and then I put a semi-gloss coat on it and go at it again.
No kidding. Okay. Yep. I didn't know you could do that with oil paints.
But the thing is, I mean, it's we say oil paints. These are actually enamel paints, which in all sense and purposes, I guess,
Solvent based.
solvent based.
Yeah.
But oil paints basically are the same. They are solvent based. They just have less solvent in them and more pigment. That's how you get oil paint paste, right?
Okay.
It's linseed oil they put in it.
Let's see. That's the thing I was thinking of a minute ago. But if you're using a Windsor Newton oil paint, you're saying that you could put it on, let the mineral spirits or your solvent go away, dry it off, etc. Give it an hour, and you could spray right over top of it.
I usually do, yes.
All right. Works.
Now,
Work.
yeah, but you're not putting on thick coats. That I mean, you're thinning it out so much it might as well not be there. Especially if you use the oil dot technique, where you take a tube of oil paints and you take your brush or even a toothpick. Some guys do it with a toothpick. They'll take their oil paint and they'll just dip it in and just dab the colors all over the place, and then a different color, white, gray. In this case, it's green. You may even put a green on. And in this case, on this locomotive, I would put a green because it's red. Green is the opposite on the color wheel. And then that's when you start blending it. And when you're blending it, you're basically taking it off and you're thinning it out so thin that it's just suspended in the mineral spirits. And once the mineral spirits are dry, it's not going anywhere. Let me see here.
It'll still cure. I mean, it still has there's still a bit of a curing process with those paints, but it'll still cure under the. It's not an evaporative paint. It's a solvent-based paint, so it'll still cure under the clear coat. That makes sense. I just had not thought you could work that fast. That's awesome.
Well, at one point I was using dull coat between coats, and it was working until I started using the MIG and the AK products. Well, once I started using the mineral spirits on them, I found that the mineral spirits was actually dissolving the dull coat. So I was getting this gummy film starting to roll down because I'm taking it off with the mineral spirits. So I stopped using dull coat until the final coat. When I finish off the locomotive, I will give it a dull coat, a coat of dull coat.
The last step. When you're done,
step, yep.
Dull coat, and you're not going to touch it again.
That's right.
All right.
So now I would do a second coat on this, but I can't do it now. Once I do the second coat, then it'll look more like that. And when I do the second coat as well, I try and get more into where the hinges are and the panel lines and that sort of thing, so that it stays there. And you can do that with a really fine brush. Once it's all weathered, I can go back and do that here. You take a really fine brush and you just drop it so that it goes down the lines, and then you come back with, where'd the brush go? The really fine brush. Once you use your mineral spirits and dab it off, you just put it sideways and clean the surface, not down into the crevice. So you're taking the paint off the surface of the panel, not down in the cracks. And that's how you end up with that sort of thing.
That's why you're taking a lot of the mineral spirit off your brush when you're working with it anyway. You're working with a damp brush instead of a wet brush, so that your mineral spirits doesn't flow around.
Exactly. If you make it so that it's wet, it will actually loosen everything up. And you don't want to loosen everything up. So I'm just going to quickly review. Let me put the cap on this so I don't spill it. One thing I suggest you do, guys, doesn't matter what paints it is or what paints you're using or whatever, even glues, find yourself a block of wood and put some holes in it so that when you put your paint in it, it's got some place to stay. You can knock it, but it's on a base. It's not going to go anywhere. I had a bottle open for when I was doing a competition at one point, and I was getting ready for the competition the next day, doing the final finishing touches, and I had like right below where I'm working here, like right down here, is my keyboard for my computer, and I was working up there, and I did something. I had the paint up here, and I turned, and my hand hit the paint, and down it came on top of my keyboard, down onto the carpet floor. Thank God I have carpet tiles here, because I was able to pick up the carpet tile right away and take it to the laundry tub and clean it with Varsol. Clean my track pants that I had on, although I always work in old clothes because I took just in case, and in that case it worked out fine. But I had to clean off my keyboard. I think that keyboard ended up going into the garbage. I had a spare one. The stuff went down into the keys.
They don't take that stuff very well.
No.
Water, you're okay. I mean, a laptop, no, but desktop keyboard can take water. We see them get just outright drenched in water. They're generally okay getting even wet, but not solvents. They have rubber in them.
Well, I've since gone to this keyboard that's down here is a flexible one now, and it's a silicone-based rubber.
Yep, laboratory keyboards.
Yeah, so I can spill anything I want on it. It'll
Yep.
still work.
And they'll take a lot of solvent too. I mean, I don't know if you could straight put it in a vat of EBK or something, but they won't. They will take some solvents as well.
Yeah. So I took the liberty of taking some pictures of this today that I can show you. Because it always looks better in photographs than it does on the camera.
For sure. And we love before and afters.
Where are we? Blow right by them. Okay. Share. Over here. Come on. You can do it.
Oh, wow. Boy, that does make a doggone lot of difference. Plus, the white backdrop doesn't hurt. But
well, that's the clean side. That's the side I started on tonight.
Yep.
There's the other side. So you can see how lonely that fan looks up there. It definitely needs another one.
Yeah, I would probably do it. I'd probably do all 5 of them myself. I don't know if I would go. It's a lot of trouble, though, isn't it?
What I might do with one of these, or maybe 2 of them, is paint rust around the ring, like they're ready to go.
Yeah. That's probably not too big of an undertaking. I mean, the Canon parts is a pretty straightforward install. It's just shaving it out of there.
You got to be careful how you do it with some of these locomotives because their plastic is so thick.
Yeah, right. That's what makes it difficult.
So it makes it kind of difficult to get it off. But once you get the hole started in the center, like I use a drill bit that has steps, and I'll take it down so that it's where's a good shot? Well, I'll take it down so that I get just to the outer ring, and then I'll take a wooden dowel and wrap it with sandpaper and go at it like that, because you have to make sure that you don't take out more than is necessary. Otherwise, the Canon fan will drop right through. And don't ask me how I know that. What's next? So there was some others here.
An Athearn gets a bit of a bad rap, but an Athearn shell with some additional parts added to them, they come out pretty good. I mean, as a base, they're not that bad.
They do. They do. Now these are Kato, but these are N scale.
Huh.
So you can see on the roof, I've used the sponge and the gouaches to give you that rust that looks like it's coming through the paint. The same in around these panels. Everyone's a little bit different. I mean, if you make them all the same, then what's the point of doing it?
That's not the real world that way.
And these are done the same way with the same wash. The other one I use is Mig Ammo Streaking Grime. And the Streaking Grime, I used it on this. It's just it's a brown color as opposed to a blackish brown, more black than brown, which is what we are using on this red. Can't really see it too well on this, but okay. Here's another red one. This one here was kind of difficult to do because I was simulating a turbo fire. I lovingly call it my barbecued beaver.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
There's your streaks. Now I used a different color on this than I did on the one we did tonight. This is actually a brown color. It's called engine oil. And there's your sight glass.
Yeah, I like the more what is that? Umber or whatever, sienna color or whatever, the slightly yellower, redder color. It's a very convincing effect that way. It's convincing either way because they just gunk up. It's just a matter of whether that locomotive, whether the tank was cleaned a few years ago and that's just mostly fuel, or whether it was cleaned a decade and a half ago and it's mostly grime. Entirely what effect you want to create.
Right. And when I took these pictures, I forgot I had the windows masked. The one thing that I can suggest everybody do when you're doing this weathering stuff and you've been working at it for a couple of hours or whatever, get your phone out, take a photograph, light it up the best you can, take a photograph. Don't look at that photograph till tomorrow.
Huh. Okay. Why?
Well, here, I thought I was finished this locomotive. I took it outside on the back fence. I have this patch of track that I put on the back fence. And then there's my hydro field in the back. So it's real hydro poles. When I took the picture, I didn't realize till I looked at the picture that the windows were still masked.
Yeah, it looks like my instinct, if I looked at that, looked like that you're trying to emulate a replacement window where they replaced it at some point for some reason.
Well,
the trucks are some of those. That's some of the best truck weathering I've seen. That graphite trick that you may not have mentioned on here that I know you've mentioned on the nightly chats. Man,
except I didn't use graphite on here.
Is that right? It looks like they've got that little sheen around the edges that just is such a convincing effect.
I dry brushed white.
Oh, okay. That's what you're doing there.
And there you can see the masking is off.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I get what. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Liquid mask.
And again, it's all about color. So it's up to you to check the color wheel. I mean, you can go ahead and weather if you want and do whatever the hell you want. But if you want it to get it to look right, everybody knows what Burlington, Santa Fe colors are like. But if you fade them down, this is dark green in real life when it comes out of the paint shop. It's dark green, and that is black. Over the hood,
Huh.
in front of the windscreen. But if you weather it down properly with first a fade on the green, I mean, I did it on all of it, but the orange as well. It's not that really bright in your face orange like it normally is. There's the graphite on the trucks.
Yeah, that's an equally convincing effect. Just having that along the edges of them.
So this locomotive in real life, same number, 5995. I think it's 5999 or something like that. Has a dent in the fuel tank. And this is a Cato locomotive, so this basically is just a real thin plastic shell over a metal weight. So I couldn't dent the tank, so I had to paint it so it looked like a dent.
Looks like a dent to me.
And if you really study the prototype photograph, you don't have to be an artist to do this. You can do it. And you have to think that way. I can do this. The more you weather, the better you get. The better you get, the more confidence you build. The more confidence you have, the more challenges you'll take on. It's that simple.
That Santa Fe, I don't know what locomotive it is, but they give a Santa Fe that's got a BNSF patch job. I know I've talked about it a few times. One of the best to show the fade effects that you've done because you faded it so significantly.
This one.
Yeah, that one will convince you of or in my book, that'll convince you of the fading effects or the benefit of fading the crap out of them to begin with.
This locomotive's still not finished.
It's just a super
But
cool.
all I did, this fade is just overdoing the white. There's probably about 12, 15 layers of that white fade that I use.
And you still worked with a 10% paint, 90% solvent or alcohol.
Alcohol.
Yep.
So in order to get the areas where there's more red showing through, all I did was take a Q-tip dipped in alcohol and started manipulating the white.
It works.
Any more questions?
No, I think that was it I had seen. There were some comments back and forth. Your Naked was talking about you could shave the entire radiator fan roof section off and replace it with a new one, or the Canon fans, which that's what the fan that he's already replaced, by the way, I think is a Canon fan. And Play-Doh makes them for the G40 and SD40 series. I really like those Play-Doh etched ones. You do have to assemble them, but they're really nice.
When I did this for Lloyd, and when I did this locomotive, I was cursing up and down. Rapido crazy glued the railings on, and they crazy glued the truck side frames on.
No kidding.
So there's some obstacles you have to work around. I managed to get the railings off and get them back on again. But I always strip things right down if I can. I won't take the grabs like the grab ladder here. I won't
Oh.
take that off. I'll work around it.
Yeah, you're not going to take grabs out without being somewhat destructive. At least to underlying paint.
This was done with a fiberglass brush. I don't know where it is now. And just scrape at the paint until you get it down to the base color. You have to be careful. If you're doing a decal job, then you cannot use the fiberglass brush because it'll just shred the decal.
Yeah, it has to be pad printed or factory.
It has to be pad printed.
Even then, it'd be pretty easy to go through, and you've got to be gentle enough to go through the white and black on that additional pad and not go through the underlayment into the primer or the base plastic.
Exactly. Like here, this is green painted box with the white and then the black painted on top. So when I scratched out the black, I only went as far as the white. I could have gone further down to the green, but I didn't want to.
I'm going to do some of that. I ordered one of those fiberglass brushes on your recommendation, so I am going to tear into some cars doing that.
This is another CP one. I did this for a guy came into the store and asked me, he said he was a conductor for Canadian Pacific. I said, okay. He says, I understand, because he looked at my locomotive that was in the display case. And he said, did you weather that? I said, I did. He said, if I give you the locomotive, and he gave me the exact number that he worked on. He was a conductor, 8711. He said, if I give you the locomotive, can you weather it for me? And I said, sure. He says, I'm retiring, so I want to have something to remind me. So he gave me one photograph, and it only had the one side. And thank God it was this side, because that's where the air tanks are.
Yeah.
This guy, when he retired, he went and retired to Russia. So this locomotive resides in Russia now.
Okay. Now that's atypical, let's say.
But you can see how there's your shut off there, the yellow.
Yep.
You got your fill cap, and then there's another relief cap over the sight glass. Over on the other side, it's a little bit different.
Did you say that's a Kato locomotive?
This one? No, it's Athearn.
Okay, Genesis. Yeah, I seen the see-through grill work and stuff back there. I didn't know that Kato had that, so that's a good-looking locomotive. It sure is. Honestly, some of that I've been looking at a lot of that Athearn stuff. There's some of that Athearn stuff is really, really nice. I mean, some of that's right on par with some of the scale trains. And
I had fun doing these ones for Marty Jenkins in Australia. These things are tiny. Just to give you an idea of size, I'll show you a picture at the end. It's with a caboose. It's all right. He's probably half asleep.
oh, Dwight, yeah, Dwight's working late in his train womb. Glad to have you hanging out. I'm glad you're back hanging out in the train womb, Dwight. There with us.
So when I did this locomotive, and this was the exact number, he had a prototype photograph that he sent me. Normally, these locomotives, they have side rods on them. Normally, they have these covers so you don't get your hands into the mechanism. This one didn't have the covers on in the prototype photograph, but it also had a water bottle sitting up here. So I just took a piece of plastic and I shaved it down and played around with it and painted it blue and put it on there just like it was on the real thing. You can do all these things. It's your railroad. You can do whatever you want. Add whatever kind of details you want. This will show you the size. It's smaller than a caboose. Little yard switcher. You've all seen Joe Fugates. My SD45 Kodachrome. I love this thing.
Yeah, I really like that, and I really like them in the shouldn't paint so fast livery. I have kind of a weird
So
effect for that.
here's the little trick that I did. Okay, so this is what I was saying. If you get a bunch of photographs and you've got techniques on it that you want to use, but they're not all on one locomotive, and you want to put them on one locomotive, you go ahead and do it. So up here I had the chipping on the roof. And then, so I got the chipping on the roof. But on another prototype photograph I had, the black was faded so much that it was almost white. And I sort of did that as well. So my chipping is different, a little different than the proto was. This fuel tank, this is a ready to roll locomotive, and they add all this detail to put on your fuel tank. I couldn't get over it.
That's really nice. I've looked at several of Athearn RTRs they make. Well, that green locomotive that I was looking at last night, I'm a real big fan of that locomotive, especially that paint scheme. But I was nervous that it wouldn't meet my expectations. So I was thinking about buying a scale trains and painting it in that paint scheme. But shoot, if they're really that nice, maybe I put plow and MU cables on it and call it a day.
So I did the same on the blue one. I don't know where the final photographs are, but these are sitting on my workbench. Come on, focus. Bang. Hurry up. But again, I took a brush with some brown paint, and the brown paint I used was Tamiya XF79. It's called Linoleum Deck Brown. And I added the chips with a paintbrush. You can add chips with a sponge if you want, but you can't get this to look like this. You might get it up here with the sponge, but those chips all over the place are done with a brush.
Yeah, with like a couple hair in the brush or something, right? You got it cut down.
No, it's just a small. What is this? A number 0.
All right, small brush, sharp brush.
A zero liner brush. But I took some Vallejo paint. I took the blister off, and I used the paint on my makeup sponge to add it into here, because that's where you get the burn from all the heat that's generated from the dynamic brake. And then you add the rust on top of that. So in doing this weathering, everything you do, you're adding. So in a lot of cases, you're working backwards. You start from the bottom and work up to the finished product. Here's another one, and this one was done with, and this was not done by me, but this was done with the oil dot technique. And the guy painted out, why is it not switching? It's not giving me the arrow. Anyway, what he did is he painted out some of the doors in a different colored gray. Slightly different than the rest of the car. He did it over here as well, and on this access panel. And then he went ahead and weathered it. And he showed me the prototype photograph. It's identical.
And the door's open, so he's used the etched metal door parts. I've looked at some of those. I know this guy. I follow this guy. Some of his work is stellar.
That's not Christensen.
Oh well, okay. There's the guy that I follow that that I was thinking this is like an Austrian or German or something. But
No, he's Canadian.
okay. Well, that's foreign to us.
It is. It is. Anyway, so a quick run over of the products that I'm using. Stop sharing. I have MIG ammo. This is the Starship Wash, number 1009. Then there's AK Streaking Grime. That's 012. This is the MIG Streaking Grime, and this is 1203. So these two are brown. They're close. This one's a little bit lighter than this one. And then there's the Tamiya. I also use Tamiya X. I think it's 2 is the white. Could be 1. I can't remember now. Which one's the black? Black is 1. So it's X2, which is a gloss. And I mix it with alcohol, spray it on, and that's how I do my fade. Once I have the fade done, then I start using these. Or if I'm doing the burn around the brake blister, then I'll use gouaches and I'll seal it, and then use the mineral spirits or the mineral products. Other than that, I'll finish this off and we'll get started on the Canadian National one. So I have another coat of paint, another coat of stain to put on this to finish it off, and we should be gold. So if you guys have any questions, even if you don't want to ask them today, we're coming back. I'll be back next month. We'll do it again. I don't mind. I'm here. I want you guys to get off your chair and get out there and try and do some of this stuff. If you go to our YouTube Model Railroading Live site, you'll see some of the videos. And if you just want to do the basics, look at the video that's there. That was number 1. It has the covered hopper. I think it's Norfolk Southern. I can't remember now.
Yeah, I think so.
But that's the basic way to get started, to get grime on your cars. And you can do it on locomotives too. The ideal situation with the locomotive is that the walkway separates from the body, because then you can do your stroke work down with no problems.
Which ones do that? Cotto does that, I'm sure. But
Cotto does it. Intermountain does it. Atlas does it.
wow, okay. They're right.
Also, oh, what the hell's the other one now? I can't remember the name. I did one for the Carquinez Model Train Club. Don Trinky.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So and it's all good, man. It's just get up and try something. Get yourself moving. Like I said, the more you practice, the better you get. The better you get, the more confidence you build up.
You're not going to get better without doing it. You have to do it to get better. This is one of those things. You could become a really skilled engineer by just studying and studying and studying and studying. You could learn your way to becoming a spectacular mathematician. Most of that's thought work. Some of this stuff is going to require muscle memory and experimentation, I'm sure.
So that's it for tonight, guys. And if, like I said, write down your questions so we got them for next week or next month. And we'll go from there. Thank you, Andy. Yes. For all you guys that are regulars of Who's Big Bill talking to, tomorrow night's show, he's talking to the creator of the Proto Throttle.
I'm stoked about it. I just ordered one of those throttles. I won't have it till Thursday, but I'm really excited about it. For any operators, that throttle is the thing to watch in the hobby right now.
If you haven't seen this throttle, you have to at least investigate. It's almost a replica of a control stand in a diesel.
It's spectacular. It is really something special. It is not a, it is not a cheap date to buy into, because it's not a, it's not a quantity produced product, but it's absolutely spectacular. I cannot wait to get mine. So, I'm really looking forward to Big Bill's show tomorrow night, talking to Scott about it. And then I'll have it. And, once I get it figured out, some of you guys who come into the nightly chat may get a little closer.
What's the name of the company? Iowa Engineering or Iowa?
Yeah, Iowa Scale Engineering.
Iowa Scale Engineering, right?
IAScaled.com or Indigo Alpha Scaled.com. It's a really nice product.
Same channel and time as you came in here tonight. So, who's Big Bill talking to is the name of the show.
And tomorrow night, we'll be here at 8 o'clock tomorrow night for that show. I'll be here with bells on to watch it myself.
All right. Any other homework, John? Oh, of course, Johnny's show on Thursday night.
It's always.
Right, Johnny's Train Talk. We'll just have to get some new blood in there. Maybe what you need is for Andy and I to have a fist fight.
And we're normally good for a little fight here and there. I could normally get one out of you, and I'm pretty much always good for one. Sparky, that the controller uses Zigbee, a dedicated protocol. So they have a little adapter for it that you have to buy a receiver for it. They tried to initially do it with Wi-Fi, but there's some delay there. So you do have to buy a Zigbee receiver, but you just have to have one of those receivers for, some number of throttles. But the throttle's the expensive part, not the throttle's the expensive part. And we're not talking super expensive. I think it was, $500 or something for the throttle.
It's less than that.
Yeah,
300 and change.
Oh,
you
got
add your tax.
really good deal on it. I think I paid $486 for my throttle, something like that. Dwight says Andy's a lover, not a fighter. Hey, I like to fight pretty well. Well, I like to debate. That's what it is. I like
Dwight, I'm Italian, so I'm a lover and a fighter.
So he thinks.
You've been hiding in my bedroom. Come on, this is a GP show.
Oh, you think? I do like to get a good fight out of you sometimes, though. You are good.
Okay.
So I'll give you credit.
All right. So have a good night, guys, and maybe we'll see you in the chat tomorrow night.